welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder in clinical definition and diagnosing. This term, this word has been floating around a lot more in recent society than it was before, but it's always been a thing, and a lot of people are now becoming more aware. And as a therapist, this is something that I do a lot of psychoeducation around with clients, because usually clients that come to therapy are usually victims of someone with this disorder. So today I want to talk about what is narcissism, and what are the signs to look for, and what causes it. Just really giving you guys a lot of awareness and insight so you can know when to spot a narcissist, what are the red flags, and how to handle a narcissist in your life. Usually it's difficult when it's a family member or someone that you're connected to, but whether it's co-parenting or a boss or someone that you really have to be tethered to in some ways. So talking about some tips around that and how to heal from narcissism or narcissistic abuse. So let's jump into today's segment. So let's start with, what is narcissism, right? Or what is a narcissist? So in clinical terms, a narcissist who fit the criteria is someone who operates in like extremely manipulative ways. They lack empathy. That is the biggest nugget to look for when you're trying to decipher someone with this disorder. Someone who lacks empathy, they cannot empathize or relate to anything that you're going through, or if they turn it around on themselves, try to make it about them, that's a red flag to look for with someone with this disorder. They usually are exploitive. They look for ways to one-up you or get over on you. They're very disingenuous people. So the DSM-5 just defines narcissistic person as someone who has a pattern of grandiosity, an excessive need for admiration, lack of empathy, which is what I said before, and usually it's beginning in early adulthood, sometimes in childhood. And they present in a variety of ways in different contexts. They're usually envious, jealous, they're arrogant, competitive. But the definition actually relates in relationships, because it takes a pattern of behaviors over time that you'll have to notice to recognize. You can't just spot someone and say, hey, that's a narcissist, right? So it operates in relationships usually. It's very complex, and the signs, to pick up the signs. So this is why this video today is really just giving you more awareness and information, and then another video is going to be about ways to cope and deal with someone like this in your life, because it's really a complex disorder, and it takes a while to kind of understand. And usually the victims, when they realize what it is, they're coming out of a fog and they have all these questions, because a narcissist has been gaslighting them for so many years and psychologically manipulating them. Very intelligent people, most of them, usually, for them to even be able to do this to someone, but it's very sinister. They're using their intelligence for the wrong reasons. So when we talk about it being a relational context, so it's considered narcissistic abuse because it's a period of time that you're experiencing this person. So narcissistic partners usually engage, like I said, in manipulation, devaluation, subtleness, where they pick on your insecurities. They use things against you for their own benefit. If you share things with them in privacy or in secret to wait to connect, no, you're giving them information to use against you to later on gaslight you. We'll go into gaslighting later on. So devaluation, where they leave in the victims feeling worthless, anxious, and even suicidal and homicidal, child. This type of continual manipulation, which includes idealization, where they put you up on this pedestal and love bomb you and make you feel, you know, so beautiful and special, and they can't live without you, and, you know, really putting on the romance on 10. Romance or just, you know, manipulation for the most part. Where it's called love bombing, and then the cycle goes back to devaluation, where they discard you, they can outright just dump you, they can outright start just talking down to you out of nowhere, turning things around against you out of nowhere to keep you on your toes. You're always walking on eggshells, wondering what's next, because one minute I'm the love of your life, or I'm the best thing there is, and then the next day the least little thing is setting them off. What's important to remember is that narcissists don't outright destroy you in a way physically abusive partners do. They plant very seeds, like little seeds in your mind of doubt that leads to your own destruction and your own self-worth, self-doubt, lack of self-worth. They will cultivate doubts that never existed before. They manufacture insecurities that were never present before. They rub salt in wounds. So like I said, if you tell them your private secrets or anything from the past out of vulnerability, they'll use that to kind of chip away further at any self-doubts that you may have had in yourself. So they're not to be trusted. All under the guise of helping you or gaslighting you into believing you deserve or provoke the abuse. So a lot of times they project blame. They never really take responsibility or accountability, and it's usually projected onto you as you're defective, you're the fault, you're to blame. So dating or dealing with anyone like that, having that as a parent or teacher or boss, anyone you come across like that over a period of time, that's what they'll destroy you little by little. And personally, that's worse than, you know, physical to me, because you can internalize that forever, and that can change the course of your life forever. And again, sometimes that leads to suicide. So you're taking your own life, you know. So the toxic behaviors in narcissistic abuse can include, but are not limited to, someone being overly critical of you, controlling towards you, covertly or overtly putting you down through cruel verbal abuse, manipulative behaviors that are employed to isolate and demean you. Usually if you're in a narcissistic relationship, the person wants to, you know, control who you talk to, where you go. They want to cut you off from your natural support system so they can have you to themselves, so you're dependent and relying on them. So when they get you to that place, knowing that you have no one else really because you've cut everyone off, then you're there and solely worshiping them in some ways and at their beck and call in some ways, so they can shape your thought process and plant seeds of doubts, because no one else is going to negate that in any way. So narcissists and sociopaths, you know, they're kind of coincide together, are known for demonstrating contempt for others as a way to demonstrate their own power and false sense of superiority. And I apologize, the information I'm getting from today is this book that I recommend to a lot of clients to read. It's called Becoming the Narcissist Nightmare, and the author is Shahida Arabi. I got this off Amazon, and it's a really good, easy read in terms of learning more about this disorder, and it can help to empower anyone who is caught up in having to deal with someone like this, and learning ways of finding your strength again and learning how to deal with the person by being armed with information, knowing exactly who they are and what you're dealing with. So in some ways you become smarter than they think they are, because they're not too smart. Very intelligent in learning how to manipulate and using psychology for negative, but once you are aware of it, you're stronger than they are, because now you know how to get out of it, get away from them, beat them at their own game, being 2 steps ahead of them, right? So definitely recommend that read. But to break it down for you guys in this video, Another toxic behavior in narcissistic abuse is someone who's physically or sexually abusive. This can include hitting the partner with objects, punching, shoving, slapping, choking, or pushing the victim, forcing the victim to have sex without their consent, coercing the victim into sexual situations that they're not comfortable with, may threaten to leave the victim or ruin the victim's life in some way if they do not comply with their wishes. So, using the relationship as a way of manipulation. So in the beginning, they love bomb you. You're everything to them. And once they know that you've fallen for them, they start to come out with these demands and threats, knowing that, okay, if you love me the way you do, she's gonna want to compromise and sacrifice her own boundaries to appease me, because I've done hooked her line and sinker. And especially they usually go for people who have low self-esteem, who have trauma history. They actually like that. So it's easier for them to manipulate and control the person. Manufacturing hostile or aggressive situations where the victim is led to emotional distress, especially through the abuser's narcissistic rage or seemingly small or irrelevant things. The abuser creates an environment where the victim feels trapped, controlled, and limited in what he or she can say or do. Another trait is engaging in hot and cold behavior that switches quickly from a loving persona to an abusive persona. It's kind of like a bipolar person. This is an abuse cycle known as idealization, which is the love bombing, devaluation, which is starting to talk down to you, giving you the cold shoulder, and then discard, sometimes discard, where they ghost you, you don't hear from them, or you hardly hear from them, and you're just left thinking like, what's happened? So in this presentation, it's mostly around romantic partners, but we'll definitely be talking about other types of relationships too, especially co-parenting or being the child of a parent with this disorder. But in this context, we're mostly talking about romantic partners because this is where it's really prevalent a lot. Stonewalling their victims into silence. So it's stonewalling their victims into silence should they bring up any concerns about the relationship, subjecting the victim to silent treatments and disappearance acts throughout the abuse cycle to create a sense of chronic insecurity in the victim, causing the victim to walk on eggshells and increase their efforts to please their abusive partner. So it's all manipulation and psychological abuse. As I mentioned before, controlling every aspect of their partner's life to the point where they isolate them from their family, their friends. This includes sabotaging the victim's friendships, familial relationship, important life events, or their goals, their own goals and aspiration. So this is someone who is destructive. They don't have your best interests at all. Only interest they have is their own. And they see you as an object, as someone, a supply, as someone that they can feed off and suck the life out of, pretty much. They're vampires, emotional vampires. So hopefully that's like a full scope, a little bit of what a narcissistic abuse cycle in a partner is. Another important aspect is, again, the word gaslighting, which is pretty much denial and projection. So gaslighting their partners into believing the abuse isn't real by denying anything the partner brings up as, an issue for the partner, minimizing their behaviors, downplaying their behaviors, or rationalizing the abuse, having a reason for the abuse, and again, making it seem like you're the problem, you're the fault, it was your fault why this happened. This includes deflecting any conversations about accountability, using circular conversations and word salad in order to avoid being held accountable. So that's a big trait in someone with personality disorder. they do not take accountability or responsibility for anything. They would rather blame, deflect, create chaos before you can actually have them sit down and look internal and show any remorse. If they do, it's usually false. It's not real, and it always comes with a but, or it's when their back is against the wall, or they're trying to perform, or they're back in the love bomb stage where it's just all a tactic to get you back in their good graces so they can continue to feed off you for supply. The biggest one is subjecting their victim to smear campaigns to slander the person's character and reputation so that the abuse victim is left with no support network. So someone like that, if they are slighted in any way, or they feel that you left them before they were ready to leave you, or, you know, when you get your power back, some of them will go to that extreme of slander and trying to turn people against you, talking bad about you, and putting all the nonsense out there to have themselves look like the victim. They're pretty good at that. The next one is blame shifting and projecting their malignant traits onto their partners during conversations while using a false charismatic self to make their victims look like the crazy ones. It's almost as if they hand off their own traits and shortcomings to their victims, as if to say, here, take my pathology. I don't want it. So a lot of times, these individuals, they verbally abuse you, they're blaming you, but everything they're saying to you is a reflection of themselves. So you pretty much can just hold up a mirror to their face with most of the things that they're saying about you, but that's not true. It's all about themselves and the things that they would never take accountability for or responsibility for. They'll rather project it onto you so you can carry that with you. So that's why a lot of the victims develop anxiety and depression, someone in these situations, or, you know, commit suicide or homicide, because it's like, it's a lose-lose situation. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. You can never be good enough. You can never please them enough. They're empty shells. They're empty vessels. So they constantly need to be fed that ego. Their ego is so fragile and so defective and broken. They're always going to need some validation somewhere. This sounds like a miserable person, right? And in theory, you grew up hearing misery loves company, and this is definitely a classic example of someone like that. So this is the first section on recognizing the narcissist. The next section I want to go into today is what causes it, right? How does someone become this horrible of a person? So it's pretty much started in childhood based on research. Usually children who become narcissistic are often children of narcissistic parents, which is very unfortunate, and that is something that I've seen as a therapist. So the trauma can affect the brain two ways. You can become a severe empath where you love and care about everything and you want to fix everyone, and you would never want anyone to feel the pain that you felt, and you were conditioned to be the helper and trying to make things better growing up, and you just wanted everything to be good, butterflies and daisies, right? I wish there were more people like that, but usually people like that become the victims of narcissists. So then the second way trauma affects the brain is someone becomes like the narcissist. So they have all these defense mechanisms. No one's gonna hurt me. I'm gonna hurt you before you hurt me. They're gonna, become the bully. So it's that unresolved trauma that's now turned into anger and, in some case fear. Someone is fearful of getting hurt, so they'd rather hurt you first. It's the defective ego state from the childhood trauma where they don't ever want to feel that vulnerable again. They'll never want to go back to that place. So now they are big, tough. They don't know how to love. They don't know how to be genuine. It's all survival mechanisms for someone who's a narcissist. So we have the empath, who is a product of trauma, that's taking all that goodness that they wish they had. And then we have the narcissist. So narcissist and empath, they go really well together, right? So there's these two types of people. But then the goal of therapy is to get you in the middle. The empaths usually come to therapy looking to figure out what the heck happened, what's going on, right? And the therapist's job is to help the empath build their confidence, find their voice again, gain insight and awareness, and learn how to separate themselves from this narcissist, have boundaries, healthy boundaries, knowing that they can't save the world, and the world sometimes is a messed up place. So they have to look out for themselves and their best interests. Narcissists usually do not come to therapy because they're perfect and nothing's wrong with them, and they are in a state of blame, anger projection. So therapy is like, swearing at them. So I usually don't see narcissists come to the office. Usually if they are in therapy, it's part of the love bomb stage, where they're trying to repair something under false pretense, and they're in acting mode, or if they got into trouble somehow with the law and they're court mandated to come to therapy. And if they are coming to therapy, again, they're disingenuous, so they're not really going to the core and the root of their problems. It's usually focused on the person that they feel that wronged them in the first place, and they shouldn't even be here, type of thing. Very infrequently do you hear of someone with this disorder getting better. Unfortunately, there are cases where they are in recovery, but in my experience, it's about 1% chance for someone with this clinical disorder to get better. We all have narcissism in us, right? We all have those traits of, I can do this, I'm better than this, in a way to kind of pump ourselves up. Oh, I look good today, you got it, I got this, pumping ourselves up and wanting to, lead healthy competition for ourselves, right? That's healthy. So we all have narcissistic traits in us, but when the clinical definition of the character flaw and the character defect, that's what classifies someone that's separate from the average person. When you are sinister, you have sinister ways, everything you do is disingenuous, you're just overall not a good person. That's what causes it. So let's go back to what causes it. So the childhood traumas that I said. So empath, you go one way, or you go the narcissistic route with trauma. Narcissism can also develop in children of parents who coddle them, who wealthy children, children of divorce, in which one child was vied over or treated as an object to be won. Again, this is all traumatic for the child, right? So this is childhood trauma. Narcissists may have suffered something traumatic when they were a child, emotional neglect or physical neglect by a critical parent. This severe trauma in childhood, what psychologists call a narcissistic wound, may have led them to shut off the parts of themselves that could empathize with others. And that is sad to me. That's the psychotic break in some ways that happened to differentiate someone like this from the average person with empathy. And it's a form of extreme self-protection. On the other end of the spectrum, there are theories that suggest that narcissism can be produced by overvaluation of the child, allowing the child to remain like a child. I've seen that happen before too, forever, without any consequences. or without any basis in objective reality for their presumed perfection. So a parent who's just overly coddling their child and, never allow the child to make mistakes or make excuses for that child's mistake. So the child grows up feeling like they're invincible and they can do whatever they want and get away with whatever they want. And what do you mean I should be, accountable? What's that? So spoiling the child can also cause that. In other words, a child who is spoiled to the point where they develop an excessive sense of entitlement and disregard for the emotions of others. So while survivors can't be 100% certain what caused their partner's NPD, that's the acronym, Narcissistic Personality Disorder, what survivors can be certain of is that being with a partner with NPD can be extremely dangerous and devastating due to their lack of empathy and tendency to be exploitive. I find that the questions of why and how can often cause confusion and accountability that shames the victim rather than the abuser. Just because someone has a disorder does not mean their abuse is not hurtful. Having a disorder does not make them less responsible for their abusive behavior and make the abuse less impactful of the victim. Who is the narcissist? The first thing you must know about a narcissist is that you will never truly know the narcissist. This is because a narcissist is someone who constructs a false self to hide away from their true selves. Their false self is a self they present to everyone else. The narcissist often presents the image of behind charming, very charming, well-loved, well-liked, intelligent, successful, generous, and kind. In private, however, often the most intimate partner the narcissist has, whether a spouse, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, children, they are selfish, cruel, exploitive, rageful, abusive, demonstrate an irrational sense of entitlement, lacking empathy, and are prone to being unfaithful. Narcissists come in all varieties and backgrounds. They could be powerful CEOs of companies who dominate the little people, or they could be waiters at a restaurant who create the harem through all the people they serve. They could live in mansions or home with their parents. They could be counselors, social workers, lawyers, pastors, and other positions that are ideal for the narcissist to execute his or her power. Some of them aren't very successful and have not achieved many of their goals. These are likely to be vulnerable narcissists, though they can still put on an air of grandiosity to hide their feelings of failure. Narcissists can lie anywhere on the spectrum of incredible success or incredible poverty. Regardless of their professional background, prestige, or status, the majority of narcissists share a devastating lack of empathy, a grandiose sense of entitlement, and an unwillingness to change their destructive behaviors. Regardless of their situation in life, this is what makes the relationship with them so damaging. So I wanted to take a breath. Maybe I need a breath. And I should explain a little bit. I have a lot of personal experiences with characters like these. I was in a 10-year relationship with my son's father, who was a narcissist, and I've dated several others after, because again, I'm an empath, and I had to overcome my own trauma, and in the process of becoming a therapist, did my healing and my work, as well as went to therapy. And so I also, have personal experience along with clinical knowledge about this. And what I'm realizing while making this video, maybe I am very passionate and sensitive when it comes to this, because one end, I really, really empathize with the narcissist. And then the other end, it's like it's such a horrible way to be, and it's such a sad way to be, and they've caused so much destruction. This is why the world is the way it is right now, and we have so much hurt and pain and devastation, and it's because of a lot of characters like this. So I'm very passionate about this topic, and I'm very excited to be able to spread some knowledge and awareness. But you know, it's important to take this information in doses, because it's very hurtful to know that, you know, people in your lives that are important to you, people that you had all good intentions for, can be such horrible people. And it shows that, you know, you have to break away, you have to isolate, protect yourself, have boundaries, and kind of, you know, close off a little bit when, you know, in actuality, people like us who are empaths are good, and we want to share the love and spread the love and heal the world. And then the reality sets in where that's not the case, right? So I want to take a few breaths right now just to hold space for anyone who is taking in this information and absorbing this information, to know that, hey, healing is around the corner, and you can break away from whatever situation that you're in, whether it's a husband, a boyfriend, a parent, a friend, a boss, anyone that, you know, is in your life right now that you are recognizing has these tendencies. That you're not the fault. You were never the fault. It's all them and their own projections and trauma, pretty much. So definitely going to be doing a part 2 with this. I'm going to finish off today with talking about the narcissist's true self versus their false self. And then for the next week, we're going to talk about different types of relationships with the narcissist, and how to start to break away and set healthy boundaries and start the process of healing from having to have dealt with someone like this. So the narcissist's true versus false self. Again, before what I mentioned, the narcissist does not feel empathy for others. That is the main thing I want you guys to take away from this segment. Thinking about someone who doesn't have empathy for anyone, that's a dangerous person. You can't connect with that person on any level. So that's the main thing to kind of recognize. He or she makes connections with other people for one purpose and one purpose only: narcissistic supply. Think of vampire, literally, like the movies. Think of the zombies eating your flesh. That's pretty much what it is on an emotional realm. Narcissistic supply is the attention and admiration of the people the narcissist collects as trophies. It is anything that gives the narcissist a hit of praise, or even an emotional reaction to their ploys. The reaction. They need these sources of supply because they suffer from perpetual boredom, emotional shallowness, and the inability to authentically and emotionally connect with others who do have empathy. While genuine non-narcissistic people wish to connect to others on a deep emotional level, narcissists fear and are disgusted by intimacy, because intimacy would expose their true self rather than the false self they project. Narcissistic, you see, lack empathy. They are unable to identify with the needs and feelings of others. They can fake emotions quite well. Very good chameleons. And are charming chameleons, well, that adapt to what they perceive others want and need for them. So they're just going through the world, you know, mimicking what they think they should be doing when it comes to making connections and showing empathy. This false self is a patchwork of different personas, qualities, and traits they put together after years of learning to imitate other people, as well as information from any media they observe. Narcissists have what we call cold empathy. They are able to intellectually understand why someone may feel what they do, but they do not truly feel the same remorse or shame that others do for harming others. So they're very smart people, like I said, but that one thing called empathy that they don't have, they're jealous of that, so when you bring anything to their attention to talk about how you're feeling based on their actions and your perception, that's why they get angry, and that's why they can't understand how you're feeling. And it's frustrating, like, why are you feeling like this, and how can you even feel like this? Like, I'm just trying to get my supply, and what are you talking about? So it becomes this big chaos blow up, or they go into stonewalling where you don't hear from them, or the silent treatment. You never really get to resolution with any of the concerns that you have because they can't empathize. They may appear remorseful or cry crocodile tears, but often it is when there is no other course of action to take the escape accountability for their actions. Narcissists lure their victims with a sense of intimacy and security early on in the relationship with their false mask, the love bombing. They're very good at that, very charming. Tell you what you want to hear, mimic everything that you're giving them. They're perfect for you, right? It's all a facade. The majority of narcissists tend to be charming, charismatic, and grandiose. They have a magnetic pull that combines fake fox innocence with the seductive pull of kindness and edginess. That sounds like every woman's dream. When I started reading about this, I'm like, no wonder, I dated a few of these types of characters, because women are looking for this balance of Prince Charming, romantic / confident, edgy, take control, take charge, make you feel, more feminine. But usually these type of men are under false pretense. To the outside world, narcissists can appear incredibly generous, even spiritually minded and humane. It is usually only their closest and dearest victims that their full frontal cruelty is displayed. Much like sociopaths and psychopaths, narcissists hide behind this sweet, alluring, charming demeanor to hook their victims and escape accountability should they ever be threatened to be exposed. After all, who would believe the victim if the perpetrator hides himself or herself in plain sight? So again, the only time you might see them, if they start with the devaluation stage of showing their true self, and you decide like, hey, I don't want to deal with this, I'm going, then they start to come back with the love bombing and, making you feel like you're, the best thing that's ever happened to them, to kind of lure you back in. They start to change and do the right things again until they get you back in their good grace, and then it goes back. So it becomes this vicious cycle and emotional abuse cycle. Narcissists can fool anyone and everyone with their false mask, including highly educated, successful, confident, and attractive individuals. So, like I said, it can happen. It happened to me. It's happened to, women, men of high stature, intelligent people, because usually these are intelligent people that are doing these things. Lawyers, judges, police officers, presidents. Who knows? Like, they're everywhere in plain sight right now. So that's why it's really good to be aware of what's happening around us, and mental health wise. So confident, attractive, and many intelligent people can be duped by narcissistic people simply because they can't imagine someone deliberately manipulating and hurting others in the way the narcissistic or antisocial personalities are prone to doing. It can take a great deal of time and effort before we can resolve the cognitive dissonance that this type of relationship evokes in us, as we are likely to develop conflicting beliefs, feelings, and thoughts about an abusive partner who can switch up masks so rapidly. Resolving our cognitive dissonance involves grounding ourselves in the reality of the abuse rather than engaging in denial, minimizing, or rationalization of the abuse, which is inevitable in trauma bonding with our abusers. So it can take someone years of therapy and or trying to break away from someone with this disorder if you've been inundated with believing that this person's false self was their true self. You have to come down from that fog of, I've been living a lie for all these years. Was anything ever true? You know, that's a lot of hurt and pain for someone. If you had kids with this person, if you were married to this person, and you've invested so much time, that is a lot to process, okay? So I want, you guys to take this information and, continue to do your own research on this. And then part 2 of this vlog, I'm going to be talking about ways to overcome and start to move forward with a life without the narcissist, which is going to be very empowering for you. It's very illuminating, and it's going to be a new chapter for you. And you're going to be armed with this information so it won't happen to you again. I think at least every person is going to run into someone like this, right? So think of it as, just a learning experience. And you're going to be even stronger coming out of this, right? But in the meantime, self-care, taking care of yourself, validating your own feelings, knowing that your feelings matter, and no one else can tell you how to feel when it comes to that. Surrounding yourself with positive people who are going to uplift you. Start reaching out to people that you consider support, whether it was people before you met the narcissist or people that has been there this whole time. We have lawn mowing and stuff going on, so I'm gonna end this video for today, and to be continued. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you guys soon.